I had been living in that apartment for a little over a year. It was an old red brick complex that I thought was perfect for my work. It was quiet, and I loved how the sound of rain hitting the rooftop was soothing. I usually enjoyed rainy nights, but I haven't stopped thinking about that one in particular. One evening I was working late on a design project. The rain really poured, and the wind howled outside. I was in a good rhythm when I heard a faint tapping against my window. At first I figured it was branches scraping against the glass. I glanced up to check, but there was nothing outside. I shrugged it off, but the tapping came back, stronger this time. It felt almost deliberate, like it wanted my attention. I tried to ignore it, but my heart began to race. I stepped away from my desk and peeked out the window. The street was dark and empty, lit only by flickering lampposts. I thought maybe I was just imagining things. Night after night it became a ritual. The tapping continued, and soon the lights in the neighboring apartment flickered too. At first it was just a few quick flashes, but then I swear I saw shadows moving behind the curtains. My skin crawled. I felt uneasy, but tried to tell myself it was someone else working late. It was the rain playing tricks on me, right? Then one night it escalated further. I was sitting there trying to tune out the tapping when I heard whispers through the wall. I pressed my ear against the cool drywall. I couldn't make out the words, but the sound of muffled voices echoed through the apartment. My heart raced again. I didn't know what to make of it. I couldn't tell if it was the rain or something heavy in the air. Finally, I decided I had to confront it. I stepped out into the hallway, hoping to find someone else who was up. The building felt eerily quiet, but the whispers grew louder. They seemed to surround me. I could hear them close, yet I couldn't figure out where. I felt a strange chill wash over me as I turned back towards my apartment. I stood in my doorway, shivering as if someone or something was watching me from behind a closed door. I was about to close mine when I heard a whisper. It sent a cold shiver down my spine. Then I froze. Someone was right behind me. I felt their breath on my neck. Panic shot through me, and I turned around, but there was nobody there. I slammed my door shut and backed away slowly. My heart pounded in my chest. I wanted to call someone, but I didn't know who would believe me. The whispers continued as I stood frozen. I could have sworn they were saying my name. I rushed to my desk, my hands trembling as the rain poured harder outside. I couldn't focus on my work. I just sat there, waiting for dawn. But it didn't come fast enough. The rain persisted for days, and every drop felt like a reminder of that night. I stayed cooped up in my apartment, avoiding the hallway. I convinced myself it was all in my head, but every creak of the building made my heart race. I tried to push the unease behind me, but I was haunted by those whispers. Who were they trying to reach? Why was I so captivated by their call? The following evening I decided I needed more distractions. I went to my favorite coffee shop, hoping the bustling atmosphere would keep my mind off things. I ordered a drink and sat at a corner table, my thoughts swirling. I couldn't shake off that feeling of being watched. It felt wrong to be out in the public after experiencing such dread alone. I fidgeted in my seat, eyeing the window as rain poured down outside like an endless stream. That's when I saw it, a shadow moving beyond the glass. My stomach dropped. My heart raced as I tried to get a better look. A figure was standing there, just out of reach, almost obscured by the rain. Tall and cloaked, I could barely make out a face through the cascading water. It seemed to wave me over, and I blinked to convince myself I was imagining it. I glanced around. No one else seemed to notice, lost in their conversations or buried in their phones. I quickly exited the coffee shop and made my way outside, the rain soaking into my clothes immediately. When I reached the spot where I'd seen the figure, there was nothing, just an empty street. The dim light of the lamppost flickered, and shadows danced unnaturally, as if teasing my perception. My heart began to race again. I hurried back to my apartment, apprehensive about what awaited me behind that door. Once inside, I felt safer, but the anxiety still loomed over me like a thundercloud. I decided to try and clear my head. I brewed some tea and lined up my work materials on the desk, trying to focus. The whispers lingered in the back of my mind, twisting my thoughts. Suddenly I heard a loud knock against the front door. My entire body froze. I glanced at the clock. It was past midnight. Who could that be? I hesitated before walking cautiously toward the door. Another knock came, followed by a chilling whisper. "Let me in." It sounded almost pleading, yet laced with something darker. I froze again, my breath hitching in my throat. The voice was familiar, echoing what I had heard before. Was it the same? I pressed my ear against the door, searching for an explanation. Silence. I took a step back and glanced through the peephole. There was no one there. Was I truly alone? That's when I noticed something unusual. The light coming from the hallway flickered ominously. I stepped back from the door, feeling the rush of dread fill the room. I needed to know what was going on. Was it time to face my fears head-on? Taking a deep breath, I turned the knob and slowly opened the door. An icy breeze rushed past me, snuffing out the light behind me. I was plunged into darkness. In that moment, I realized I was no longer just confronting a mystery. I might be standing at the edge of something far more dangerous, and then I heard it again, the whisper, closer now, curling around me like smoke. "Let me in." I stood there, heart pounding, in the doorway of my apartment. The darkness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, and I felt the chill seep into my bones. The whisper hung in the air, lingering as if it was searching for something, someone. "Let me in." My instincts screamed at me to slam the door shut, but something kept me rooted in place. Curiosity? Fear? I couldn't tell any more. I took a tentative step into the hallway, the dim light flickering overhead. It was a small act, but it felt monumental. With each step, I thought about the figure from the cafe, the shadow waving at me. Had I actually seen it, or was my mind playing tricks? My heart raced as I strained my ears for any sound beyond the whisper, each creak of the building loud and alarming. The whisper came again, more insistent. "Let me in." Where was it coming from? I turned to face the staircase leading up, the air growing colder as I moved. Maybe someone needed help. But as I climbed the stairs, a feeling of dread washed over me. My chest tightened, and I stumbled, catching myself against the railing. I reached the second floor and paused, listening intently. The noise was faint but distinct, muffled voices echoing, blending with the sound of rain pounding against the windows. I crept forward, instincts on high alert. From where I stood, I could see my neighbor's door ajar, the hallway light casting a faint glow. I approached cautiously and peeked inside. The room was empty, but it was open. Had she left in a hurry? I glanced around for any sign of her, but saw nothing unusual, just an ordinary, untouched living space. Then I heard it again. "Let me in." The voice was clearer now. It wasn't just a whisper, it was almost pleading, and it came from behind me. I whirled around, adrenaline shooting through my veins, but the hallway was vacant. I was alone. Suddenly, the door to my apartment creaked slightly open, revealing the darkness behind. My stomach dropped. I hadn't pushed it shut properly. I stepped back, heart hammering in my chest as I forced myself to look inside. The pitch-black space felt alive, pulling at me. I took a deep breath and stepped back inside, ready to shut the door tight. But there, on my kitchen counter, was my phone, demanding attention with a screen that glowed ominously in the dark. I reached for it, trembling, and saw several notifications lighting up the screen. They were messages from my neighbor. "Can you come over?" they read. "I think there's something wrong. Please." Before I could process it, the lights flickered again. This time, the shadow darted across the hallway in a blur, and I felt an unseen presence. My heart raced as I slammed the door shut and locked it. But I knew that whatever was out there could still find a way in. And just then, my phone buzzed again. This time, the message was different. "Don't let it in. panic washed over me as I stared at the screen. Who was trying to warn me, and what was lurking just beyond my door? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. With my heart racing, I stepped away from the door and moved to the kitchen window. I tugged the curtain aside and peered out into the rain-soaked streets below. Nothing seemed wrong. Just the usual darkness and glimmers of city lights reflected off the damp pavement, but it did little to ease my anxiety. "Don't let it in." The message replayed over and over in my mind. I dropped my phone on the counter, resisting the urge to respond. I wasn't even sure who was reaching out to me. Was it my neighbor trying to warn me about an intruder? Or was it something more sinister? I turned back toward the living room. The flickering lights were unsettling, creating shadows that danced across the walls. I took a deep breath, desperately trying to calm my racing heart. Then the noise returned. It was faint at first, but a scratching sound began to echo through the apartment. I froze. The sound was rhythmic, almost deliberate. I cautiously approached my front door, placing my ear against the wood. I expected to hear a voice or someone outside, but all I could hear was the steady beat of raindrops against the ground, and the scratching continued, still coming from within. I stepped back, my gut twisting. Should I check the peephole, or was it better to ignore the sound? As my mind raced, I remembered the last thing my neighbor had said before I saw her doorway ajar. "Something's wrong." Suddenly, the scratching stopped. A chilling silence replaced it, leaving me on edge. I waited, holding my breath, unsure of what to expect next. Then I heard a faint thump coming from behind the kitchen counter. Slowly, I crept toward the sound, pulse quickening with each step. When I reached the edge of the counter, I could see something small. A piece of paper. It was wedged between the floor and the cabinet, slightly damp from the rain outside. I picked it up and unfolded it, my hands trembling. The scrawled handwriting was shaky, almost frantic. "It's here. Don't trust it. Leave now." Panic flared inside me. The warning felt urgent and real. I glanced back at the door, then at the kitchen window. I had to get out, but where could I go? The apartment complex was poorly lit, and I knew the streets were empty at this hour. That's when I saw it out of the corner of my eye. A figure, tall and shadowy, standing just outside my living room window, shrouded by the heavy rain. It felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. Was it the same being I'd seen at the cafe? The whisper returned, clearer now, resonating in my mind as if it were inside of me. "Let me in." As dread enveloped me, I moved instinctively toward the front door. I had to leave the apartment, but I also needed to confront whatever was lingering outside. The figure was waiting, and so was my chance. The moment my hand touched the doorknob, a surge of cold air swept across the room. It felt as if the very atmosphere was warning me to turn back. I hesitated, breath hitching in my throat. The figure still stood there, its outline barely visible through the curtain. "Let me in." The voice echoed in my mind again, dripping with longing and desperation. I didn't want to know what would happen if I opened that door, but staying inside felt just as dangerous. With my heart pounding, I took a cautious step back from the door and glanced at the kitchen window again. The darkened figure had shifted closer, now almost pressed against the glass. The rain blurred its shape, but its intent felt unmistakable. I wanted to scream, but the sound lodged deep in my throat. Suddenly the power flickered and died. The darkness consumed the apartment. My eyes scrambled to adjust, and panic rose inside me. Had the figure done this? I gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady myself as I stumbled toward the dim glow of the streetlight outside, and then I heard it, the faintest whisper, like a breath against the chilled glass. "Please, don't go." Fear gripped my insides. I squinted through the rain, trying to make sense of the figure's features, but saw only shadow. "Who are you?" I croaked, voice breaking. "Let me in." The voice was clearer now, filled with an aching sorrow that pulled at something deep within me. I shook my head, denying its request. It was wrong. Everything about the situation screamed danger. I turned, desperate for anything to distract me from that haunting plea. My eyes roamed the room until they landed on the bathroom door, slightly ajar. The memory of the neighbor's warning danced in my mind. What if there was something in that bathroom? I had to check. With hesitant steps, I approached the bathroom. I gripped the doorknob tightly, willing myself to be brave. As I pushed the door open, a rush of cold air engulfed me again. The small room was dark, the only light coming from the faint illumination of the street lamp filtering through the window. My heart raced as I stepped inside. I quickly scanned the room, looking for anything amiss. The tub was empty, just a slight trail of water droplets betraying its recent use. But there, on the floor, I spotted a towel, the one I'd used yesterday. It wasn't just the water that was slickening the tile. It was smeared with dark, almost black streaks. Bile rose in my throat as I knelt to inspect it closer. The closer I got, the more I realized it wasn't just water. It was blood. Panic surged through me. Someone had been here. I scrambled back, my mind racing with 1,000 questions. I needed to leave. But just as I backed away, the door creaked open wider. I whipped around, and there it was. The figure stepped through the living room window, rain dripping from its edges. I couldn't see its features, but I could feel its gaze locking onto me. "Let me in," it repeated, inching closer with each word, almost as if it were drawing me in. I bolted, running toward the front door, heart pounding in my chest. No more hesitating. I had to get out. The door swung open, but just as I reached it, everything went dark again. This time, the terrifying realization hit me. I wasn't alone. I stumbled back, every instinct screaming to escape. The darkness swallowed the room, but I felt the oppressive weight of the figure looming closer. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there, waiting. A chill crawled down my spine as I forced myself to breathe slowly. Then I remembered the kitchen knife, the only thing I had to defend myself. I darted toward the knife block, my hands trembling. I could still hear its voice, a haunting echo lingering in the shadows. "Let me in." I switched on my phone's flashlight, flooding the room with light. The sharp beam cut through the darkness, revealing twisted shadows and a lingering mist. I caught a glimpse of the figure, now only a few steps away from me, its form slightly changing with the flicker of the light. "Stay back!" I shouted, gripping the knife tightly. The quiet hiss of rain against the window blended with the pounding of my heart. But it didn't stop. Instead, the figure's outline distorted and morphed, like someone trying to force their way into another world. "Please." The voice softened, yet carried that same desperate yearning. "I need you to let me in. Let you in. Let you in," I shouted. My voice seemed weak against the looming presence. "What do you want from me?" The light illuminated a glimpse of something silver protruding from the figure's form. A knife. My breath quickened. A surge of anger mingled with fear. Someone was threatening me, and I couldn't let that happen. That's when I saw it. The figure shifted, and a small container fell to the floor with a soft thud. I glanced down in an instant, shining the light on it. It was a blood-stained talisman engraved with strange symbols. The resemblance to the towel's stains was unmistakable. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice trembling. The figure seemed to hesitate, swaying slightly as if uncertain. "What does this mean?" "Let me in." It repeated, but the urgency faded. I took a step closer, almost drawn in by its presence. I could see now. Despair painted its features. I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. "Are you trapped? Is that why you need me?" The figure hesitated and then, with a sharp inhale, took a step back. "You don't understand." Suddenly the power flickered again, and the room plunged into darkness. My heart raced as I strained to hear the figure's movements. I felt a cold rush, and an icy breath grazed my ear. "You mustn't leave. There's more to know." I closed my eyes tightly, But a sudden crash broke the silence. The window shattered, shards spreading across the floor. I jumped, adrenaline flooding through me. The figure was gone, and I was left alone with the sound of the rushing wind. Then I heard it, a voice faintly calling from the corridor outside. "Help me!" Was it the figure, or something worse? I couldn't tell. Instinct pushed me toward the door, but curiosity held me back. What did it mean? What did it want? With shaking hands, I stepped out into the darkened hallway. Whatever lay ahead felt like a choice I had to make. I gripped the knife tightly, heart thundering as I moved forward. The whispers grew louder, and I forced myself to breathe deeply. I had to find out what really happened here, and the rain continued to pound outside, matching the beat of my racing heart. I sensed a darkness lurking just beyond the next corner. But the truth, it was waiting for me. I stepped into the hallway, the dim light from my phone casting wavering shadows against the cracked walls. Each creak of the floor made my stomach twist. Whatever was calling to me felt both like a plea and a warning. "Help me!" The voice came again, clearer this time. I moved toward it, though a part of me wanted to run. I glanced back at the room, half expecting the figure to return. It felt almost alive behind me, a heavy presence that wouldn't let go. As I approached the end of the hall, the air turned colder. Every breath I took felt heavy, almost suffocating. I paused, unease prickling at the edges of my mind. I could see the light spilling from the bathroom door. The voice seemed to drift from there, low and haunting, almost like a chant. "Please!" I didn't want to. I really didn't, but something pushed me forward. I couldn't ignore it. With a trembling hand, I nudged the bathroom door open. The hinges squeaked, and the flashlight flickered in the darkness before stabilizing. The room was empty, but the mirror gleamed ominously. It reflected the rain slicked outside, droplets rapping against the glass like impatient fingers. Shivering, I noticed the light flickering behind me. I whipped around. No one was there. The voice was gone. I felt like a fool standing there, half expecting some apparition to appear. I should have turned back, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then, amidst my growing tension, I caught sight of something on the bathroom floor. I knelt down to examine it. It was another talisman, similar to the one from the figure. It was trapped under a loose floorboard. My pulse quickened as I pried it free. Blood smeared the edges, and more strange symbols spiraled across its surface. "What is this?" I whispered, the room feeling heavier with each word. My fingers traced the carvings, a chill shaking me as the symbols seemed to pulse beneath my touch. I knew then this was not a mere item. It was a key to something I could hardly comprehend. Footsteps echoed softly from the hallway behind me, drawing my attention. They were slow and deliberate. I turned, knife raised, but the hallway was empty. The voice had shifted, now barely a whisper. "You have to understand." I clenched my jaw, desperate to control my rising fear. I had to know. Was it warning me or threatening me? I took a step back into the bathroom, scanning the room for any clue. Just then, the air shifted violently and the temperature dropped. My breath came out in clouds as the lights began to flicker again. I tried to shake it off, to think through the haze of fear. I looked back at the mirror and something glinted, a shadow. Formless and dark, it crept along the wall before lunging at me. I stumbled back, nearly losing my footing. That's when I saw it. A reflection not of myself but of the figure, distorted and twisted, mirroring the desperation I had sensed before. My heart thundered. I had to escape. But as I turned to flee, the bathroom door slammed shut, trapping me inside. The desperate chanting rose once more. The dark figure in the mirror reached out toward me, and I gasped, realizing it wasn't just calling for help. It was warning me of something worse, the real threat that lurked just beyond the door. Panic surged in my chest. I had to get out, but the truth that awaited me was closer than ever. I pressed my back against the cold bathroom wall, trying to steady my ragged breaths. The air buzzed with tension, and the chanting echoed, louder this time, like a sinister lullaby. I had to pry the door open, but my hands were shaking too much. "Stop it!" I shouted, my voice cracking. The chanting just grew louder, reverberating off the tiles. My heart raced as I felt heat pooling in the back of my mind. Anger, fear, confusion. All I wanted was to leave this nightmare behind, but it seemed determined to keep me here. I glanced at the mirror again. The figure was still there, its hand reaching out toward me. I could feel its desperation, its fear. Maybe it couldn't escape either. In that moment, I felt a strange connection, but there was no time to dwell on it. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged for the door handle, pulling against it with all my strength. The wood resisted, like it had its own will. I gave it one last shove, this time with my shoulder. It groaned and jerked open with a wrenching sound, and I stumbled into the hallway. The air outside the bathroom was thick, suffocating. I had barely taken a step when I heard it again, a low laugh that slithered into my ears. I froze, scanning the darkness. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice wavering. No answer, just the howling wind outside and the persistent rain. I took another cautious step forward, heart racing. The hallway felt longer somehow, an endless stretch lined with doors that seemed to leer at me. What had I awakened? Then the light flickered once more, and I saw it, a shadow darting from one door to the next. It was too swift to be the figure from the mirror. This one felt different. Something darker. I couldn't stay here. I turned on my heel, heading back toward the end of the hall, my mind racing. As I neared the staircase, the sensation of being watched returned stronger than ever. I felt it too close, prickling against my skin. I could just make out a faint glow emerging from under one door, almost inviting. But that was exactly what I didn't want. Another trap. Suddenly a loud thud came from behind me. I whipped around, adrenaline spiking. The door I had just fled swung open, and I could barely make out a figure standing in the dark. "Why did you come here?" it hissed, voice low and gravelly. Terror clamped down around my throat. I staggered back, searching frantically for an escape. "I didn't mean to," I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. Was it the figure from the bathroom, or something worse? The shadow shifted, and I caught a glimpse of the talisman I had just found, burned into its palm. Before I could comprehend what was happening, the lights went out completely, engulfing me in darkness. My hands shot out, trying to find something to brace against. Panic surged anew as I struggled to even breathe. Then everything went silent. No footsteps, no chanting, just an oppressive stillness. I realized I was trapped once again, but this time the real threat was closing in on me. I had no idea what awaited in the suffocating darkness. I took a deep breath, hoping to steady my thoughts, but all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. Then a soft rustle came from the direction of the figure. My instincts screamed to run, but my feet felt rooted to the floor. "Is someone there?" I whispered, wishing the words would suddenly make everything okay. But in the thick silence that followed, dread coiled tighter in my chest. The darkness felt alive, shifting around me. I clenched my fists, trying to fight through the panic. Maybe if I waited it out, whatever was lurking would tire of this game. But I knew that wasn't true. I had to move. I couldn't let the shadow trap me here like it had done to the figure in the mirror. Suddenly, something brushed against my leg. I gasped, stumbling backward. My foot caught on the floor, sending me sprawling to the ground. The thud echoed in the quiet, and I cursed under my breath as I scrambled back upright. I could feel my pulse racing, the adrenaline sharpening my senses. I quickly scanned my surroundings, hoping to find a weapon or something to use against whatever was hunting me. But there was nothing, just the cold breath of the hallway. Just then I heard it again. The soft rustle followed by a low, drawn-out breath. It was almost mocking, taunting me. I squinted into the shadows, trying to make out any movement. The atmosphere thickened, compressing around me like a vice. I took a cautious step forward, my hand brushing against a wall for support. Every creak of the floor felt amplified in the silence. And then I saw it, two glowing eyes piercing through the dark. "Help me," it whispered, the voice sounding almost like a plea. I froze. The words sent chills racing down my spine. "What do you want?" The eyes shifted closer, revealing a delicate face draped in shadows. It felt familiar somehow, like a distant memory. I thought of the figure in the bathroom and the terror on its face. "Are you—" I began, but the words caught in my throat. "Please, I can't be here anymore," the figure gasped, a hint of despair threading through its voice. "You have to help me. You have the talisman." For a moment I almost wanted to believe it. Maybe it was the key to understanding this nightmare. But instinct warned me not to trust it. "What does it do?" I asked, my breath shaky. "It binds us," it replied, its voice filled with urgency. "You must choose to break it." Before I could respond, the heavy door at the end of the hallway creaked open further, as if inviting me. I glanced back at the figure, whose expression twisted into something dark and desperate. "Don't listen to it," it hissed, and panic flooded my veins. I faced the beckoning door, fear tearing at my insides. Should I confront whatever lay beyond, or was the figure right? Could I risk unlocking something worse? But I had already felt trapped by the shadows, so with trembling hands I stepped toward the door, leaving the uncertainty behind. As I approached, the air crackled around me, and an electric feeling ignited in my core. Just as I reached for the handle, the lights flickered back on, and the confusion returned. That's when I saw it. A name etched into the wall next to the door, a name I hadn't seen in years. The past was catching up, and the door was only a step away. I hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. That name. It stirred something deep, a memory that was half buried but suddenly felt achingly vivid. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. Could it be another trapped spirit, like the one behind me, or something entirely different waiting to unleash chaos? "Don't go in," the voice behind me implored. I felt the urgency laced with desperation, and for a brief moment I was torn between the two forces. Those piercing green eyes in the dark, and the beckoning pull of the door. My hand hovered over the knob, pulse racing, and I felt cold sweat form at my temples. "Are you telling the truth?" I called out, voice wavering as I struggled to maintain my composure. "What does this door mean?" The figure remained cloaked in shadow, frustration writ large on its face. "You have to believe me. That door leads to the chaos you've already felt. If you open it, you'll invite that darkness in, break the bond." Just as I struggled to process its words, an unsettling energy coursed through the hallway. I braced myself against the wall, but it felt alive, breathing, pulsating. I turned my gaze back to the luminous writing on the doorframe. All at once, I felt the talisman vibrating in my pocket, the strange symbols etched into the fabric of my reality. The urgency was overpowering. I didn't want to make a wrong choice. But moving forward also felt like surrendering to whatever fate awaited me. Gripping the talisman tightly in my hand, I called out, "If you are truly trapped, show me a sign. Let me know I can trust you." Silence enveloped me, and for a moment the world around me held its breath. Then, from the shadows, something shifted. The figure's eyes widened. "You shouldn't have done that. It knows." Panic clouded my mind as a deep rumble echoed from the open door. The air thickened, a presence coiling around me like a snake. "What does it know?" I shouted, fear creeping into my voice. "Everything!" The figure's voice trembled. "You are the key, but so is that door. You must make the choice, but quickly. It will come for you. You have to break the bond." The whispering grew louder now, surrounding me like a storm, filling my ears with chaotic voices chanting my name. "Let me in, they begged. The wall felt like it was closing in, shadows evoking memories of dread and foreboding. I squeezed my eyes shut, remembering everything that had drawn me here, the whispers, the shadows, the talismans. What had been a mere curiosity thrust me into a living nightmare. There was no escaping it now. I had to confront my fears. With a sudden burst of determination, I turned back to the door, my pulse surging. Whatever lay behind it needed to be faced. "I am breaking the bond," I declared, feeling the weight of something ancient shift within. But just as my hand grasped the handle, everything fell silent. The hallway darkened, and the tension became an almost tangible force. I hesitated, catching my breath, the pressure of eyes upon me shifting and swirling in the void. A quiet whisper emerged, gentle yet insistent. "You don't have to go through with this. Listen to me." My heart raced. It was the figure behind me, but its tone held little urgency now, more sorrow than fear. "What will happen if I open the door?" I asked, my voice a shaky thread weaving through the darkness. "Choices lead to consequences. You might unleash the darkness, but I can be freed." I swallowed hard, mind racing. The truth, a jumble of fear and uncertainty. Was this even real? It was impossible to reason with questions that had no answers. "Do it!" the figure suddenly yelled, shattering the stillness. "You are meant for this. Trust yourself. We can break free together." Feeling the talisman pulse in my grasp, the room surrounding me felt charged with electricity, shadows flickering at the edges. I can't, I stammered, the voices surging again, drowning me in despair. But then something lifted. A strange clarity cut through the chaos, as if the ground beneath me solidified. Maybe I wouldn't break the bond after all. Maybe I could find a new path, neither door nor shadow. With one last look at the door, I turned and dashed away. Fleeing the darkness, I plunged back into the heart of my apartment, the chaos receding behind me. I reached for my phone, desperate to call for help, a sense of urgency and relief surging through me. As I stumbled through my front door into the hallway, the rain whispered outside, its soft caress reminiscent of shadows and secrets. I didn't know what awaited me, but somehow remaining here felt like my darkest instinct. I ran. I ran because the uncertainty and fear followed, but I clung to the hope that perhaps the answers would come when I least expected. And as I crossed the threshold into the brightness of the stormy night, I realized I would never truly escape the questions that lingered, the enigma of the otherworldly binding me to memories of fear. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder what happened behind that door, what choices were made in shadows, but mostly I try not to think about it. It's easier that way.